Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Inside Track, Equibase's weekly handicapping podcast, where we give our analysis, picks, and wagers for a couple of the weekend's top races. However, this is a different episode. This is our Breeders' Cup special. And I'm your host, Ben Kudla, and I'm joined today by Colin Sheehan from Trust the Profits and the host of Doubling Down. So thank you, Colin. I'm so excited for you to be here and so excited to talk about these two epic days of racing.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. Very easy to say yes on this type of week. I mean, this is the Breeders' Cup Championships, and it's championships because you're getting the best of the best in all the different divisions on all the different surfaces, and they all come together for 2 days in November, and it just sets up for some unbelievable matchups within the races, and then overall, you get a great contingent coming from Japan. Obviously, you bringing over the horses from Europe, who are always formidable, especially on the turf. And then you even mix in what I love on Friday, the 2-year-olds. It gives you a little peek into what you get to look forward to on the Derby Trail coming up as well. So it's a great 2 days and very easy, and happy to be joined here.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, thank you so much. And don't forget to take advantage of the Equibase Breeders' Cup Week promotion. Get 30% off all past performances as well as Raceland's subscriptions. So that link will be in the video description below. And also, this Saturday is another free chance to win your way to the NHC 2025 with the weekly feeder contest on horseplayers.com. So the Equibase Race, the NHC weekly feeder contests are on Saturdays at horseplayers.com, and the top 2 finishers from each weekly feeder contest will make their way to Raceland's Final 50 on February 22nd, and the top 2 finishers from the Raceland's Final 50 will earn their seat to NHC 2025. So sign up and play, and that link will be in the video description down below. So let's just move on to these amazing 2 days of racing, the 41st edition of the Breeders' Cup World Championships. And of course, this year's host track is where the turf meets the surf at Del Mar. 14 graded stakes races across 2 days with horses from all over the world coming to Del Mar to compete. And so today's show will be going over the Juvenile, the Distaff, the Turf, and the Classic. Hopefully we'll pick some winners on one of the most difficult handicapping weekends of the year. So let's just start out with the Grade 1 $2 million Breeders' Cup Juvenile, the 9th race on Friday, mile and 16ths on the dirt for 2-year-old colts and geldings. Some legendary horses have won this race in the past, including Macho Uno, Johannesburg, Stevie Wonder, Street Sense, Uncle Mo, Nyquist, and Classic Empire, to name a few. Last year, we saw Fierceness romp by 6 1/4 lengths for trainer Todd Pletcher with John Velasquez in the irons. And of course, we'll see Fierceness on Saturday in the Classic. So much young talent in here in this race, Colin. Who really stands out to you?
Yeah, and you said it. This is really the race that kicks off, right? The attention for what you have to look forward to next year for the Kentucky Derby. And I think so far we've got a great little crop here of 2-year-olds to be really excited about. And I think there's 3 or 4 horses in this race that are bringing what they've done so far to the table. And let's put the chips out there and see. You get a horse like East Avenue, who had such an impressive race last time at Keeneland that you were there for. Chancer McPatrick, a horse when you came on my show for Doubling Down, you were glowing about. Jonathan's Way, right in the middle, is another horse that's had a lot of success, especially Jonathan's Way is sired by Vacoma, who's just been absolutely on fire on the dirt. And you got some horses in here by McKinsey, who's been absolutely on fire on the dirt. And what's really surprising is to look at the morning lines in a race that Bob Baffert has won the most, at least tied for the most with Lucas. Having horses and look at the morning lines on these horses, 8-1, 10-1, and 20-1 for Bob Baffert's 2-year-olds at Del Mar. I mean, to me, regardless of what East Avenue, Jonathan's Way, and Chancer McPatrick has done, that has to be in the back of your mind of, one of these Bafferts I think I need to pay a little bit of attention to, go through them again. And I picked out one of them that I am interested in, which is Citizen Bull. This horse ran in the American Pharoah. And one thing with these 2-year-olds I think we want to pay attention to is how much success they've had at the distance for this race. These are young horses. They're only 2. You have to keep that in mind as you're handicapping. And something that I'm going to look for is not only horses that have had some experience at the distance, but also maybe experience at the track, the Del Mar surface, which is something that Citizens Bull you can also say about. Has the highest fig at the distance, Equibase speed figure of 102. really went out in that American Pharaoh and took it to that field, including Getaway Car, who returns here. This horse is sired by Into Mischief. Martin Garcia's aboard. This horse is going to be forwardly placed, and I think he has what it takes to close late. He's not going to be my on top pick, but it's one of those prices. Citizens Bull at 10-1 is one that I think I have some intrigue in. My on top pick is going to be East Avenue. That last performance was so impressive, and as I just mentioned, was at this same distance of a mile in the 16th. So not really any concern there for me. This Godolphin bred and owned horse trained by Brendan Walsh with Tyler Gaffleone aboard. One thing I noticed, Ben, is just how easy he makes it look. And that's even something that Tyler said. He can go 47 seconds in a half mile, and it looks like a gallop. And he's gone outside, he's gone inside. Nothing phases him, is the quote from Tyler. And what you saw in that race at Keeneland in the Breeders' Futurity, which is usually, that's a tough field that you usually run into in that race. That's the marquee race there in the fall. Had a pretty big field to go up against. Ferocious, Filoso, Dapper Moon, all horses that got over 81 speed figures. And that's something that I'll go back and look at. So yes, East Avenue got a 99, but it's not like it was a huge drop off to the 70s and 60s that the horses behind him were getting. But look at this. This is just never even in doubt, not even close.
And just romping.
The way he moves is it's so beautiful. So
East Avenue, like you said before the show, he just skips across that track like it's nothing.
Yeah, it makes it look so easy. So I'll go with East Avenue on top and Citizen Bull. I'll give you an opportunity to talk about who you like, before I add who I'm going to put in my exacta.
Yeah, definitely. Well, first off, I love both your picks, East Avenue and Citizen Bull. And yes, I was right next to East Avenue in the paddock at Churchill for that day, the Breeders' Futurity. And wow, what a stunner that horse is. It's absolutely gorgeous. Just has all the class in the world. So it's hard to go against that horse. And also Citizen Bull, very interesting as well. And I love that point you brought up. These 3-pop average 20-1, 10-1, and 8-1. That's wild to see that in a greatest stake at Del Mar. Citizen Bull, I don't know. What did you think about that Del Mar Futurity? I think he got himself a little bit too far back, but I just didn't see an excuse that race. And, if you cross it off, obviously he looks pretty darn good, but I don't know. What were your kind of thoughts on that?
Yeah, the thing there is that he ran against some horses that come right back in here. Getaway Car, McKinsey Street, Gaming. It wasn't horses that suddenly disappeared and you wondered who it was that he lost to. They put up triple-digit speed figures in that race going by Equibase. And, it was September 8th. A month later, he comes back against many of those same horses. And that's the one knock about the horses out in California is they kind of do just run against each other, and it's hard to tell. It's hard to judge what that group does versus the East Coast when you have them moving between the different circuits, and you can get a sense of, well, this horse beat that horse or ran good against this horse. He was 4 wide in that race, obviously flattened out at the 7 furlongs. They went a little bit faster, of course, with being a 7 furlong race. So I'm okay with the stretch out, hoping that is what Citizens Bull is more accustomed to, and he's the one that I'll take a shot with.
Love it. Yeah, I'm going to take a shot with him underneath. But, of course, Chancer McPatrick, I obviously adore this horse. After his second race, some of you may remember, I did call him a future Hall of Famer. A very bold statement, I know, but he did not let me down in the Grade 1 Champagne Stakes at Belmont at the Big A, winning by 2 3/4 lengths. Went from last to first that race as well. Just turned on the jets going to the final turn and made a nice sweeping move on the outside and edged clear in a very impressive performance. Undefeated with back-to-back Grade 1 wins, and mind you, in the Grade 1 Hopeful Stakes, he hit the gate at the start. He's bumped later and lost an iron and still won. To me, that's one of the reasons why I just like this horse is just unreal. But all increasing Equibase speed figures as well. Since 1991, Chad Brown wins at 30% with horses with 3 consecutive increasing speed figures. 90 wins for 296 starts and 62% in the money. Chad Brown and Flavian Pratt went at 39% together in the last year in graded stakes races. In the past 2 years, Chad Brown and Flavian Pratt went at 46% and 77% in the money in 2-year-old graded stakes races. 6 wins from 13 starts. He's not the fastest in the bunch. I'll give you that. Ran a career best 98 Equibase speed figure last time out. Chad Brown wins at 21% in the last 2 years in graded stakes with horses who ran a career best speed figure in their last start. But this horse kind of reminds me a lot of another Chad Brown horse who won this race, Good Magic, who also ran the Champagne Stakes before his bid in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. And Champagne, speaking of a prep race, since 1991, 9 horses who ran the Champagne Stakes went on to win the Juvenile, and 30 finished in the money. This will be the farthest he ever ran, but obviously was not a problem with a furlong stretch out in the Champagne at a mile and a half furlong. And a half furlong, I think, might be even better for his running style on Friday. Tons of speed in this race as well, which I think is even better for his outside post with his running style. Single for me in exotics, to be honest. However, there's tons of money to be made with Citizen Bull in second, East Avenue as well, with kind of low on 5-2, and even gaming at 8-1. So I'm going to play him Chance McPatrick straight, but I'm going to put him on top of East Avenue, Jonathan's Way, Citizens Bull, and gaming for an exacta.
Can't argue. I mean, that's the concern that I had was his running style in a race like this, but I think he's going to get at least the possibility of a nice, strong pace setup up front, because you know that's what Getaway Car, East Avenue, Jonathan's Way, these are all horses. Citizens Bull, the 7's been on the front end. They're all horses that have there's not a huge body of work to look at to know for sure that these are the styles that these horses are going to run. East Avenue is just faster and he gets to the front. So I don't know that you can necessarily call him a horse that needs to be on the front end yet. I think that this race is going to do a pretty good job of kind of shaking that out for us a little bit. But the running style would be a little bit why I was a little concerned in using Chancer McPatrick. For a bet, I'm probably going to go something like East Avenue on top of Citizens Bull and Jonathan's Way. I think Jonathan's Way, as I mentioned, I've been really paying a lot of attention. You can throw it into Race Lens. I'm a Race Lens user like yourself, and just check out Vekoma on dirt and make that your angle.
Yeah.
100 and let's go back. So it's obviously this year is the first year. 114 starts, 28% win percentage. Success score of 8.3. Anything over 7.2 starts to grab my attention, and a positive ROI of 32%. I mean, that's just something with these 2-year-olds. You want to pay attention to the pedigree. And your horse, Chancer McPatrick, has McKinsey on top, who's nothing to sneeze at either, who's been having a really great stats running on the dirt with the 2-year-olds as well. So, but those are two that I think you just have to pay attention to.
I agree. Yeah, like you said, that's the most fun part about handicapping these 2-year-old races. A lot of them, they don't even know their running style yet. That's
Right.
just where they've been. So they're just coming into their own, and we're just doing our best to see what they're going to do. But there you have it. There's our Breeders' Cup Juvenile. Colin's going with East Avenue, and I will be going with Chancer McPatrick. So let's move on to Saturday. The Grade 1 $2 million Breeders' Cup Distaff, a mile and the 8th on the dirt for fillies and mares, 3-year-olds and up. Field of 8 in here after scratches from Idiomatic, Batacuda, and Miss New Yorker. The notable winners of the Distaff includes Zenyatta, Royal Delta winning 2 years in a row in 2011, 2012. Beholder won this race twice. Monomoy Girl won this race twice as well. And last year's winner was Idiomatic for trainer Brad Cox with Florent Giroux aboard. Fortunately, she was retired by Juddmonte about a week ago, so we will not see her try and defend her title on Saturday. But I'm interested. Are you going with the big, bad Grizzly, Torpedo Anna?
She's my girl, just like Chancer McPatrick's your boy. Torpedo Anna has been one that I've actually been on. I mean, I had her in the Oaks. Really was so impressed in that Oaklawn race back in March. And what I used for the barometer to have her as my pick in the Oaks was exactly what we just talked about with East Avenue. With Brian Hernandez in that race at Oaklawn, she came around that turn, past that group of horses, and he wasn't even moving. Was barely even giving this horse any effort. And that's something that we've seen with her, right? And she was doing that against the fillies. And then that really got backed up by that race in the Travers. Just an unbelievable performance. Just fell up just short of fierceness. And then came back to win the Cotillion, a race that people thought, was maybe a little weak, but the speed figure came back at 112. And now you've got suddenly 3 speed figures that are continuing to improve for her. The concern would be the campaign. I mean, it's been a long, you keep thinking, I just keep waiting every time she raced to say, okay, we're putting our way to Breeders' Cup. It's like, no, we're going Travers. No, we're coming back at Parks. And now we're going to the Breeders' Cup. And there's a little bit of a question of how much has she done. Now, the one thing I said on Monday night show on our channel was, if there's one horse I keep seeing on my thread, it's Torpedo Anna, waking up, getting a bath, getting a workout. This morning on the Breeders' Cup show, you're getting all the attention to watch and see how she's doing. And I think that that's so important for the attention to the sport and the attention of who she is. She's just she's really exciting to see. It's too bad Idiomatic scratched out, obviously for the better. If she's not right, that's what you want to see happen, and not be put in a situation where human or horse can be injured. But I don't know necessarily. I mean, I've done my work on the horse coming over from Japan. And that is your number 9. Awesome result. This horse is 7 for 7, sired by Justify on top, and hasn't done anything wrong. And this horse's speed figures have been in the 100s every single race except for the first one. I think a lot of people that you'll see out there, it's basically between these two now, and it's a matchup that obviously adds some intrigue and adds some excitement with USA and Japan, and then the contingents that they're bringing over, and that's going to be a theme. I think Japan's going to have a very big weekend with the horses that they have running. I think that as Tim on my channel said on Monday, and I've kind of, after he said it, I said, I think you're right. The best exact, the most comfortable exact I think we feel on the whole weekend is Torpedo Anna over Awesome Result. And maybe you just try to hammer that depending upon what you might get, 3-1, 4-1, I don't know. And maybe that's the best way to make some money off Torpedo Anna. I think in the race prior, Cogburn looks much the best in that race. And, you could start off, Cogburn, Torpedo Anna, and whatever multi-race wagers you're doing with 2 singles, and maybe try to spread in some of the other legs, which I think are going to be more difficult. How about you? Is Torpedo Anna a lock, or are you fading her?
I want her to be a lock for the sport of racing. I do want her to win. I'm a big Torpedo Anna fan, and I mean, obviously, I think she should destroy him here. I mean, as long as nothing goes wrong, really. But like you did say, that's a great point about load management that she's had. I mean, just race after race after race, grade one, going against the boys, back to a grade 1, just really not taking too much time off. But also, like you said, watch her in work in the morning, going galloping. She has to be in the first set, is what Kenny McPeak said this morning, or else she just goes crazy in her stall. So she's just a filly that wants to run, wants to win. I respect that. I mean, yeah, won 5 of 6 races this year. Only loss was to Fierceness. Won the Cotillion, but not in the prettiest way possible. But that being said, though, as we saw in the Mother Goose on Saturday at BAQ, I mean, Gunsong and Tarifa, they're not anything to shake your head about. I mean, those are 2 very tough horses, and they showed in that amazing stretch run in the Mother Goose. If she does win the Distaff and Fierceness loses the Classic, I think it'll be a very valid argument for Horse of the Year. The last filly to win the Horse of the Year was Havre de Grace, 2011, I believe.
Sounds right.
Yeah, and that was one day. Yeah, Rachel Zenyatta, and then Havre, 3 fillies in a row. So I don't know. I think she's a horse of our generation, and I want her to win. This is almost one of those races where it's kind of difficult to handicap, just because big 4 to 5, big favorite. But there is money to be made, though, and I'm right along with you with the Awesome Result. The morning line 4-1 in the second, coming from Japan. Interesting daughter of Justify, with the Yasutoshi Aki barn with Yutaka Taka aboard. Actually, this trainer, Yasutoshi Aki, he actually worked for Neil Drysdale out there in California from 1996 to 2003. And then he went back to Japan in 2003 and took out his trainer's license. And then this jockey, Yutaka Take, is a legend in Japan racing. He holds 7 all-time wins records in Japan and won the Japanese Triple Crown of horse racing and has won multiple Japan Cups as well. I think Christina Blacker on the podcast last night said he's kind of like our Mike Smith, and I agree. I think he's 55 years old and, picks and chooses his rides, and he's coming here to ride this horse. And so definitely a very interesting horse, and also Raging Sea. Very, very interesting as well. Jeff Mullins, he's winning at 40% in stakes races at Del Mar over the last year. Jeff Mullins and Tyler Bays, I can't believe he's still riding, to be honest, winning at 50% in the last 3 years in graded stakes races together with a plus 158% ROI. Won the Grade 2 Summertime Oaks at Santa Anita by impressive 9 3/4 lengths after stumbling up the start out of the gate. Coming off a nice win in that Grade 2 Zenyatta Stakes at Santa Anita, running a career best 112. Yep, at 20-1. I mean, is she 20-1 or 7-2? Yeah, I mean, a little low at 7-2, but that's a nice filly. But yeah, to me, it's all Torpedo Anna. I just don't see anybody beating her unless something really goes wrong. But
Hard to disagree. I mean, Raging Sea is certainly interesting. The 4-year-old filly for Chad Brown, a horse that's going to track the leaders and come late. Multiple has won a grade 1, a couple grade 2s.
beating Idiomatic in that personal and sign.
Yeah, so I think that this horse might be the one that's overlooked. But that's only because of what the star power that Torpedo Anna is bringing, and then they're gonna immediately there's this immediate want to create this rivalry with the Japanese horses and the Americans, and then we've been building that up in the derbies, and now you kind of immediately feel yourself magnetized towards Awesome Result because of that. Raging Sea might be that one that's overlooked that maybe surprises, but let's cheer for Torpedo Anna because it's such a great story.
Love it. Love it. All right. Well, there you have it. Our distaff. We're both all about the Grizzly. So let's move on to the grade 1 $5 million Breeders' Cup Turf. 1.5 miles from the turf for 3-year-olds and up. Some past winners include English Channel, Highland Real, Enable, Bricks and Mortars, to name a few. Last year's winner was Irish bred Auguste Rodin for Aidan O'Brien with Ryan Moore aboard. That was Aidan O'Brien's 7th Breeders' Cup Turf win of all time last year. Pretty wild. Out of all the 40 runnings of the Breeders' Cup Turf, 25 winners have been European-bred horses, 63% win percentage. So definitely they own this race, like you said before the show started. But I got a long shot, but I'm interested to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, there's only been one U.S. winner since 2015, and that was who you just mentioned, Bricks and Mortar, in 2019. It's a race that's just been dominated by Euros, and especially those coming over from Ireland: Aidan O'Brien, Frankie Dettori, Ryan Moore. Those are the names with the most wins, and that makes sense because those are the ones that are coming over. And I once again found myself landing amongst 3 horses right now. It's important to pay attention right now for Saturday. I know you always think of Del Mar being sunny, but there is some precipitation on the schedule for right around 5, 6, 7 o'clock. And that could make the turf a little wet and could make it even better for a horse who I think is someone you want to pay attention to, which is the number 5 JRB. I think this horse is a great post. This is an improving 3-year-old. Has a little bit of an every other pattern. You could obviously that jumps out when you look at first place, 7th place, first place, 3rd place, first place, 2nd place, first place. Okay, but if you go back to that 2nd place, lost to a horse by the name of Economics, who's just that's nothing to sneeze at, being second to Economics, who beat Auguste Rodin in his race prior. So these are just the class that we're talking about with some of these horses. You can see why they dominate this race when they come over. 117 Equibase speed figure was the career best for JRB last time out at Longchamp in France. And I can't absolutely. I mean, right now I'm between those two. I think if it gets, JRB's 4 for 6 on a wet turf, and I said between these two, but I didn't give you my other horse. My other horse was Luxembourg. I think Luxembourg, who, when you look on the past performances, last time got a 119 speed figure and a class rating of 120 and finished 6th, right? So you see 6th and you say, okay, it's a Group 1 race. There's only 2.5 lengths behind some of those horses we just mentioned, Economics and Auguste Rodin. 6th in the race before that, in a race that included Blue Stocking, who was your ARC winner, Rebels Romance, who comes back in this race, who was your 2022 winner of this Breeders' Cup race. Absolutely grade 1 company. And Ryan Moore's aboard. To me, Ryan Moore is the greatest jockey in the world. He just makes rides happen, and he's gonna get you're gonna get a good ride with Ryan Moore. So at 12-1 for me, with the Aidan O'Brien and Moore, that the success that we just talked about, Luxembourg is a horse that I'm absolutely interested in. Ran back in Ascot in July 27th, took some time off, then ran that race in September at Leopardstown in Ireland in that Group 1. The speed figures are high, the class numbers are high. I'm all good using Luxembourg, and then you can't ignore Rebels Romance. This is a Group 1 horse through and through. William Buick's aboard for Charlie Appleby. A lot of victories at the Group 1 level. And as I mentioned, the winner in 2022. I think some things you may want to think about is what to do with a horse like Emily Upjohn, who's a filly. Why not go to the Filly Mare Turf, and put her into this race? Obviously shows the confidence that a trainer like John Gosden has. And, I'm hearing her as certainly being a popular pick. As we start listening and hearing other people's opinions, it probably shows the confidence. This horse was third to Blue Stocking, who I'd mentioned was the ARC winner. Hasn't won since last July. And so that was one thing that I was, when I started going through these and trying to make my decisions, superb horse, running with the best, but I want horses that are getting there and winning. And there's a little bit of that where I just didn't see enough of the getting to the winner's circle to put on the top. So I'm between Rebels Romance, JRB, and Luxembourg. Those are the three I think I'm going to, probably do an exacta box with. If I had to put one on top, we'll see what the weather's like, but it would be between Luxembourg and JRB, knowing fully that I'm getting a little challenge with Rebels Romance for sure. And I can't blame anybody for looking at the 3 either. Another horse coming over from Japan, Shaharar, easy for me to say. The numbers on this horse jump out. The class ratings 131, 132, 126, speed figures of 137, 135, 131. Obviously, there's some translations that those races are being run over in, they're not being run in Japan. That was actually, the 135 was from Japan. So the races in Japan stick out generally on Racelands as being much higher. So you have to take that into consideration. As there's a little math you got to kind of take into consideration and know that they're not truly 137s that the horse is going to run over here, but they're still very competitive in this race. So, and that's a horse that finished second to Rebels Romance 2 back, so you can do a little bit of that game with this horse. So I'm Luxembourg, JRB, Rebels Romance. Did I hit any of yours, or where are you going?
The Emily Upjohn one was definitely interesting to me. John Gosden, we both respect very highly. A fantastic, world-renowned trainer. He's not going to send one over across the pond just for nothing. But I'm also going a little higher than 12-1. I'm going with the 10 Wingspan, 15-1 for Aidan O'Brien. Filly by Duwawi, running as a homebred for Coolmore. In the last decade, 3 fillies have won this race. Found in 2015, Enable in 2018, and Tarnawa in 2020. And in 2018 and 2020, fillies actually ran 1-2 in both those years, which I thought was pretty cool. Nice improving filly in every single start. First time out, ran a 94 Equibase speed figure. Next out, 95. Next out, 98. Next out, 106. Next out, 111. And then last time out, ran a 120 Equibase speed figure in that Grade 1 British Champions Filly and Mare Stakes at Ascot, running second by a couple lengths to a Group 1 winning mare. Aidan O'Brien was at 23% in graded stakes races with the horses who ran their career best last time out speed figure. North America, Sarah Dubawi wins at 28% in turf routes. Wingspan is only 3, so I will factor in some of this breeding to this scenario. Speaking of 3-year-olds, 2 out of the last 3 years have been 3-year-olds winning this Breeders' Cup turf. So I did find her last race on YouTube. You cannot find those on Racelands, unfortunately. But she was passing that final half furlong of the British Champions. But what really stood out to me was how she just kept running and even closed in at the end, surging at that 1 7/16 distance. She still had some left in the tank, and she did not give up after she was passed. And I really love to see that, especially out of a filly. I just kind of have a feeling about her. And at 15-1 in a Breeders' Cup race, you just kind of got to go with those gut feelings. So I'm going to go with Wingspan all the way. I'll probably do a one-play show bet on her. But yeah, like you said, it's hard to ignore Rebels Romance with a morning line of 5-2, number 11. Another Dubawi. Gulling looks really good in here from the Charlie Appleby barn. That being said, though, Charlie Appleby has kind of been cold this past 3 months, I'd say. But regardless, Rebels Romance coming off a nice Group 1 win with William Buick aboard. He gets them out on Saturday. This horse is 10 for 13 at this 1.5-mile distance with the third. Basically, all those were in stakes races and Group 1s and Group 2s. And won 5 out of his last 6 races. 3 of those wins in Group 1 races. Charlie Appleby and William Buick went at 44% in graded stakes races together in the last 3 years, 18 of 41 and 78% in the money. William Buick alone wins at 35% in turf routes in North America, 6 of 17. Beat Shirai in this last race in the Grade 1 Dubai Shima Classic at Maidan. His last 4 starts are at a 133, 123, 122, and 116. But also, that being said, those are diminishing speed figures. So, the morning line, it's a nice horse, but I think it's just way too low for a bet. And I think this race could just be a big popper. So I'm going to go with Wingspan over there at 15 to 1.
Yeah, and you can quickly filter some of that data right on Racelens, which I did while you were talking, which is Dubai turf routes for 3-year-olds only running in graded stakes. Here's some names you'll remember that won under those conditions. Yabir and Modern Games. You get a positive ROI of 24 and a 27% win percentage. So you can add up those stats out of Dubai for these 3-year-olds on the turf that are only going to flatter your selection.
There you go. Yeah, I love it. I mean, it's the Aiden Army. He's not bringing these over, for nothing, just like John Gosden. So, but yeah, there, if I can make a point for Wingspan, I definitely have to make a point for Luxembourg as well. So I hear you on that. And, I didn't really take too much of a look at Jarabi, but definitely an interesting horse. And I believe that 3, like you mentioned, is going to be very forgotten about. I really haven't heard anything about that horse, so that's kind of interesting, but I love it. We're both picking value. So
yeah, it's a race to do it. I mean, there's a race that feels pretty wide open, and you're getting some good prices on some horses coming over that it's almost a given that they're going to be successful. So spread a little bit. You can use those singles that we talked about earlier, such as Cogburn and maybe either Torpedo Anna or Awesome Result. You got to pick one of them. You can't use both of them, in my opinion, on a ticket. And now you get to a race like this where you can spread, and you get to a race like the Classic where I think you might need to spread, and that's where you're going to need those decisions as you start to do your ticket structure for races, multi-race wagers.
I agree. Yeah, this was definitely the race to spread with Cogburn and Torpedo Anna, but I do not think the Classic will be as easy as people might think. And speaking of that, let's just move right on. Last but not least, the test of champions around the globe, the Grade 1 $7 million Breeders' Cup Classic with past winners including Cigar, Skipaway, Go Sapper, Invisor, Curlin, Zenyatta, Blame, Mucho Macho Man, American Pharaoh, Arrogate, Gunrunner, and Flightline. I mean, this race is unreal. So last year's winner was White Abario for Richard Dutro Jr. with Irad Ortiz Jr. aboard. Very diverse field here, with a field of 14 and also eligible. Definitely some value. Who are you playing?
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting race, and I love the fact that it brings together what we talked about, not only as we talked about Breeders' Cup weekend being a culmination of all the different divisions. Within the races, you have a lot of stories that you can bring together. And so this is the culmination of all your 3-year-old seasons coming to an end, and then mixing them in with some of these older horses that you've heard over the last couple of years, Senior Buscador, and then you also are adding in a horse who hasn't run on the dirt coming over from Europe with City of Troy, who is a monster on the turf with sired by Justify. So you start to wonder, the Triple Crown winner on the dirt, if that horse can take to the dirt, you're dealing with a big threat there. But that's a big question mark. And, how many question marks do you want to have on your bingo card as you try to find the winner for the Breeders' Cup Classic? So not only do you have a wild card of how the horse takes to the dirt, at least right now you're getting him at 5-2 as your morning line favorite. And that's, to me, what's most unattractive about City of Troy. I mean, it makes sense. We'll see. I think there's a lot of horses in here that you can make a lot of cases for. I landed on my boy, who I touted nonstop on all the shows that I did for the Kentucky Derby this year. Thought he was the best horse in the Kentucky Derby, just didn't get there in enough time. Took some time off back in Japan, came out with a nice little prep race, not tuned up, but it did enough to get done. And that is Forever Young. Forever Young is I'm going to go ride or die in 2024, both in the Derby, and now we'll come back with the Breeders' Cup Classic. I think this horse is just just really, really talented. I like the time off. I like the fact that they took him from the Derby, because the Derby's a race that we talk about. We always talk about draw a line through the Derby because it's so fill in the blank. There's too many horses. It's so grueling for the horses that are 3-year-old at that time. And you can definitely see a letdown of horses that leave that race. Look at Rich Strike. That's the extreme example. But that really takes a lot out. And so he comes back in a prep race on October 2nd in Japan. It was enough of a prep race where he had to do some work and he had to get through the crowd, and he got home. And what it was, the field, tremendous. I can't sit here and tell you that I can say yes or no. It is what it was, and it was to get ready for this race. And the rail, like I said, that's probably not where I necessarily wanted him to be. But let him get out there and let him run his race. And I think he's absolutely a threat in here. I love Senior Buscador. He's a star of my show Doubling Down that I do. He's the first big hit that I had, and we had some great jokes about him. And he made me a lot of money on the Saudi Cup when I boxed. I had him to win for a lot, and then I put him with Ushbatasoro, Saudi Crown for my exacta and my tries, and I cashed big. And I haven't played him since. But I think here's an opportunity for him, at 1.25 miles. Okay, a little bit of a concern, but I think he could be closing late, and I think that he could be one that picks up pieces in the back. So call me crazy, but I'm going to include him. And Ushbatasoro is a horse that also comes over from Japan, who we know what we're getting on the dirt, and that's a horse that's going to give you a game effort with some speed figures that absolutely are to be considered. Ran in the 5th place in this race last year after a little bit of a tough start, and I think it was kind of over for him pretty quickly at that point. And went to Maidan, finished in second in that race behind Senior Buscador, beat Senior Buscador next time out in a Group 1 at Dubai. Went back to Japan, probably want to see him win that race, but he comes in off of another little bit of a layoff. I don't think at 12-1 he's one that you necessarily want to discard either. And then I don't never know what to do with Fierceness. I know he's a really good horse, and me and Vinny on my show talked about how we don't believe that he is inconsistent as people make it out to be, because we did exactly the thing that we talked about. Champagne, toss it with the slop. Holy Bull was first off the layoff. You can give him an excuse for that. It's the Kentucky Derby. You can draw a line through that, as we just talked about, and look at that. You do that and he's undefeated. Now, the one thing you might want to say is he gets into any little bit of a trouble and he kind of folds it up. Well, is it that, or is it the 3 excuses that I just said? So he's talented, man. And I can't, he's the one that I'm probably going to have that decision-making point on of what do I do with Fierceness, as probably so many are. And we'll see where the price ends up. I want nothing to do with Sierra Leone. I'm done with that horse. And I'm already hearing the rumors of, well, the pace is going to set up. And at the beginning of the week, there was nothing. Today, I heard 3 different people who Sierra Leone, I think, is the horse that you want to pay attention to. And he's the one that you should be on. I'm all set. I'm all good with Sierra Leone. I'll take Next before I take Sierra Leone, because I don't mind the cutback in the distance. I was actually Next. If we did this show on Monday, Next would have been my pick. Going back, looking at the class ratings that I got out of Equibase, now that we've got the past performances and you can start going through them. And we know this, right? We know the fields he's been beating at the distances that he's so great at running is nothing. You're putting the price is okay. I think if it floats up, I like it more. But you're putting a lot of stock in the fact that what he's done visually might be clouded by the horses he's been running against. And the class rating, the average class for him in this race, he's 9 out of 15. So, that was kind of where I said, okay, I gotta make a decision on what to do with the horse like Next. Guess who's number 1 out of 15 with average class in the classic for this year?
Oh,
it's Senior Buscador,
look at
so
that. Yeah.
So that was kind of when I came back and I said, look, he's been running against some, top class. I'll take my shot with him. Joel Rosario gets aboard. I like his style on horses that close. So I'm between, Forever Young on top. I don't see myself changing on that. And I get a mixture of Ushbatasora, Senior Buscador underneath, maybe next, depending upon where the price falls. And I could probably make a case for Highland Falls as well. And then I'm going to give you a sneaky pick after you give me who you like.
Okay, yeah. I definitely agree with Forever Young. I mean, brilliant horse. I mean, only lost one race in his life, and that was to a hair on a nose in
Yep.
the Derby, and he's been training remarkable. Watching him at that Breeders' Cup, at breakfast at Breeders' Cup, really impressive horse. So I think he has a fantastic chance. But I'm going to go with a 20-1 shot here with Newgate, coming off a really nice effort in that Grade 1 California Crown Stakes, formerly Awesome Again Stakes at Santa Anita. Finished third by just ahead to Subsanador and National Treasure, and a 3-horse finish. And of course, Subsanador and National Treasure are both out with injuries. But when you watch that race, Newgate was mid-pack on the outside for most of the race, going into the final turn. Kind of looked like National Treasure was going to pull away, but Newgate stayed patient, and John Velasquez barely touched him, and then he made his move on the outside about mid-stretch, and he just almost got there. Surging at the end. And I think the stretch out to 1.25 miles will be good for him, especially since he already has a win at this distance under his belt in the Grade 1 Santa Anita handicap. Frankie Dettori gets the mount on Saturday, which I love. Baffert and Dettori win at 42% together in graded stakes races. In the last 3 years, 5 wins from 12 starts and 8 in the money. Newgate ran a career best 122 Equibase speed figure last time out. In the last 3 years, Bob Baffert wins at 29% in graded stakes races with horses who ran their career best Equibase speed figure last time out. And that 122, so over the past 45 days, that's tied for the best speed figure of any stakes non-winner of any age at any track that is yet to run back. So a very, very interesting stat line there you can find on Equibase.com. His horse also has the best middle pace rating in the race with a 105.1 and the best late pace rating with a 132.5. Working really well since his last race. 2 bullet workouts in a row on October 20th, went 5 furlongs in 59.2. On October 27th, went 5 furlongs in 58.8. Love this horse at 20-1. And I think this is kind of a relatively weaker classic field. I hope I don't get in trouble for saying that, but I think it is. So I think, it kind of just sets up nice for someone big to run. Like you said, Fierceness, that's just such a difficult horse to bet. And he was running that pattern, and then now he's out of the pattern, and you can draw lines, like you said, through those races, but those races are what they are. And it is what it is. He's been training well. I think he's going to run well, but I don't know if he has it in him to win this type of race. At 3-1, I definitely don't like that. But yeah, City of Troy, big question mark, 5-2, do not like. I mean, yeah, obviously, 6 to 7 lifetime, and 5 of those wins were in graded stakes, and the last 3 in a row were Group 1s. Aidan O'Brien, Ryan Moore, like you said, the greatest jockey in the world right now, went at 32% in the last 3 years in graded stakes. 6 of 19. Best average speed in this field with a 114. Second in average class behind Senior Buscador with a 114. 1-for-1 at this 1.25 mile distance. But it's just so unknown going from turf to dirt. And actually, Aidan O'Brien, in the last 3 years at least, has not had a turf to dirt graded stakes starter in North America. So it's just completely unknown. We don't know. But, like you said with East Avenue, how he skips across, that dirt, same with City of Troy. I mean, watching him train, like his strides are just ginormous, just unreal. So, and I know he'll also be retired after this race as well. Correct? Yeah. So kind of interesting that he even went in this race. I would have went to the Breeders' Cup turf if I were them, gotten that win, no blemish on the record. I mean, he could run really bad. We really don't know, but for me, it's all
That's the
Newgate.
intrigue, though, right?
It's very intriguing. I'm just excited to see him,
Yeah.
see him run. But yeah, to me, it's all Newgate, 20-1, win place show. I don't think we're going to get 20-1 though. I bet he'll be bet down to like 10-1, 11-1.
I don't know, because I don't know who's the only horses that would make those odds change that much. I mean, who's going to be taking less money? Maybe City of Troy. Maybe some of those favorites will float up a little bit. There's just a lot of options, and there's a lot of different ways that you could go as far as where those lines end up. I want to give you a long shot who is sneaky here, who I haven't heard anybody talk about, but I don't know if the screen will be able to show. This is my 2023 Kentucky Derby notebook, and so I still have it. And you'll see right there, most impressive 2-year-old is Pyrenees. I wrote that note in this horse's second start against Tappet Conquest. And then obviously came back in that next race, which I played him at Churchill over the slop, and he got bobbled, bumped around, finished 33 lengths behind, then came back and ran at Fairgrounds, in a race with Banishing. You might remember him. Put up an 86. Then they pretty much took him off the trail at that point. Coming back the next year, he ran in some allowance levels, and I forgot about him. And then look at this. He shows up in grade 3, wins, and then in his last 2 races steps up to the Stephen Foster, the Jockey Gold Club, and puts up 108s back to back. Equibase speed figures 108, career best back to back. That is to me jumps out as a horse that could have another step forward in his late 4-year-old season. Maybe he's a horse that's maturing later. He's 30-1. I know this is a little off the board for sure, but I think he's sneaky improving. Is he good enough to come in here and beat City of Troy and Forever Young? And, I'm not crazy. He's not going to beat Fierceness. But he did beat Kings Barnes and then finished second to Kings Barnes. And he beat Skippy Longstockings. And if people are talking about Highland Falls, who I've heard a lot about, he was in that exact same race last time and, finished 4 lengths behind him in second. Sherry DeVoe has been training really, really well lately. Brian Hernandez stays aboard, I should say. I just think at 30-1, if you're looking for a horse maybe to round out your tries and supers, Pyrenees, the number 8, is one that you might want to pay attention to. And whenever I have horses like this, they usually last place and out of it on the backstretch. And but we'll see. Just something to pay attention to. Not this horse jumps out at me after that note I had.
You never know.
Yeah.
I mean, Sherry DeVoe, Brian Hernandez Jr., they know how to find the winner's circle. What, they just win that with Brilliant Birdie on Saturday at Keeneland. I forget what race that was, but
our King at 99-1. You never know.
That's right. Well, we love these 30-1 long shots. And that's what makes the Breeders' Cup so fun. You just bury your head in this racing form and try to find something big. So that's what I'm doing. Newgate at 20-1, and Colin's going with Forever Young. So there is our Breeders' Cup special. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. Thank you, Colin, for being on. Good luck in your wagers this weekend, and we'll see you next week.